Hello and welcome to Center for Spiritual Living Leesburg. I'm Tamara. Our theme for this year is Timeless Wisdom, Evolutionary Vision. And this month, that also is our theme. For our talk today, the title is Spiritual Bypass in the Time of Crisis. I think that's just what we need today. And our speaker will be Reverend Sunday. Right now, please join me as we open our sacred space together, setting our intentions for our service and bringing our awareness of our unity and oneness, which is represented by this one lit candle. Let us close our eyes now as we bless our service today. Together, let us recognize the divine presence that moves through all things, and know that this presence of love expresses as each of us in magnificently unique and beautiful ways. I know that we are blessed by this time together, and that we are each renewed in our remembrance of love, peace, wholeness, and connection. I give thanks to everyone who is joining us today and everyone who made this service possible. May the energy of love that is generated here bless us all abundantly, and so it is. Please feel free to add to the chat or in the comments any prayer requests or celebrations that you would like us to include later in our community spiritual mind treatment, which is our form of affirmative prayer. And now we will bless the contributions and the donations that are shared today for our center. There are many ways for you to give, and you can see that on your screen. You can text your donation to 703-940-9620. If you use Cash App, send it to $CSL Leesburg. If you would like to put something in the mail, that still works. Send it to our mailing address, which is P.O. Box 1830, Leesburg, Virginia 20177. Or you can use PayPal at information@csl.leesburg.org. At CSL Leesburg, we believe in the law of circulation. We know all that is given to our center blesses us and also those who receive. We are a tithing community, and in addition to helping pay our expenses, which continue even though we aren't meeting in person, we also tithe to our home organization, as well as to organizations that inspire us and help to further our vision of creating a world that works for everyone. Thank you for your support. Now, please join me as we read the affirmation that you see on the screen. The presence of spirit within me blesses everyone I meet, tends to heal everything I touch, brings gladness into the life of everyone I contact. Therefore, I am a blessing to myself, to humankind, and to the day in which I live. And now we move to our time of meditation with our Reverend Sunday.
Thank you, Tamara. And we all love you and honor you that this day is your birthday. So blessings to Tamara and everybody that's celebrating a birthday this month. January is a busy month in our community anyway. And Kristen's birthday is tomorrow, right? Yes, so happy birthday to Kristen. All right, so I thought today we would kind of do an amalgam meditation of self-love, compassion with a little Tonglen thrown in. So, so if you'd like to just settle in, close your eyes if you choose, that feels comfortable to you, and just take a nice deep breath in. And allow that breath as you let out to just flow out down through your body, out through your feet, just feeling the groundedness and to the earth wherever you are. Let's do that again. Nice to breathe in through the nose, and as you breathe out through the mouth, just imagine that breath going all the way down your body, through your legs, out through your feet, and just imagine that there's roots in your feet that ground you to this earth. So we're just going to begin by focusing on that heart space. bringing yourself present, feeling into the heart space. If it helps to conjure up a sense of love or compassion, you can bring forth an image of a person, a beloved pet, or some place that you love to go that might conjure that sense of love and compassion from that heart chakra space. Just drop it down into that heart. You might imagine that energy from the heart space radiating out into your whole physical being. So from this heart space, you might just do a tour of your physical body and notice what emotions might be showing up within you. And as we notice that, we just breathe in whatever that emotion might be, and then just breathe out love and compassion to yourself. This is a form of Tonglen, where we breathe in or acknowledge what emotions or challenges might be facing ourselves or the world, and then we just transform that into love and compassion. So it might be a thick, dark energy that as we acknowledge, we transform into lightness and energy of love. And as you do this, whatever emotion you might have named for yourself, just imagine that there's others out there in the world today that might be challenged by that emotion or might be enjoying that emotion, and just take that in for all those. I'm particularly thinking about the challenges that we've experienced this week, especially in the US, that there is lots of emotions going on for ourselves and for those in our country and indeed the world. And so if there's been a sense of fear or anxiety or anger, we can acknowledge those, bring them into our heart, and allow our heart to transform them. Just breathing out calm and peace and love. You can do this as you feel comfortable. If you don't want to focus in on a negative emotion, that's totally fine. You can always just acknowledge that there are people right now in this world who are feeling love and gratitude and peace as well. In that case, we allow that to lift us up. We breathe it in and breathe out gratitude. So we're just going to sit in the silence for a few minutes as you do this practice, as you choose whatever you might want to be transforming in your own experience, or what you might want more of as well. Knowing that you are centered in that divine, radiant light of love within that heart chakra. Now let us just settle back into that heart space again. If you need to, you can again conjure up your mind's eye, an experience where you felt love, compassion, peace. Drop that down into our physical body. And then let's just radiate that out easily and gently. Feel it filling up your whole physical expression. You might visualize a light energy or bubbles that's moving through your body, an effervescence. And then just notice it radiating out as light through your fingers, through your toes, through your heart space, out into your present place, your home, wherever you are sitting in this moment, and allowing that energy to radiate out into your house and all those who reside there. And then just allow that energy to again continue to move throughout your neighborhood, down the streets. You might begin to have a bird's eye view as you get higher, as you look down on your town, your city, your county, state. Those of us who are in Virginia or Maryland or DC, we just radiate that energy to our state capital, to all those who reside in DC, to our Congress people, elected officials, staffers, police force, those who have come to the town to express themselves or to visit our capital. Let us know peace and safety for all. As we expand that across our country to all places where there's discord or fear. And then let us move this around our earth, lighting up the whole globe with this light and this love. Affirming that there is a divine presence that moves through all things, always available, and I claim that presence as a presence of love, of peace, of wholeness. And even though we leave that energy surrounding our earth and moving out into the universe, we bring our awareness back to the space where we are in this moment, in our physical body. And once again, note that love within the heart space. And taking a breath in, breathing out that energy all through the body once again, right back through the feet, grounding into this earth. Placing a hand over the heart if you choose to, and just acknowledging that loving presence that matters, makes a difference as we do this spiritual practice together. We love ourselves, we love each other, we love our world. And we allow this to bring us forward to the rest of our day and the rest of our week. Love and light. And so it is. And so we're going to hear from Leah today.
You can say that you stand apart and build a fence around your yard. You can build a tall rampart and guard it with a gun. You can dig yourself a moat, burn the bridge and burn the boat. It won't matter that much, you know, 'cause all the world is one. All the world is one.
Thank you, Leah. How beautiful that was, and a perfect message for us today. So, as Tamara mentioned, our theme for this whole year is Timeless Wisdom, Evolutionary Vision, and for the whole month, we're going to be talking about that. I changed my talk title a little bit today to kind of reflect on the week that we've had, and I'm going to talk a little bit about spiritual bypass and what we can do in times of crisis, what our spiritual teachings can help us with, and how we can not spiritually bypass when we do this. So I thought it was interesting last night. My son asked me at dinner time, he just kind of asked out of the blue how my spiritual beliefs have evolved over the last 20 years or so, and where I have grown and changed in my spiritual development. And I thought that was a really timely question. So we're talking about this whole thing of our foundational teachings and how we've evolved and grow. And just kind of off the top of my head, I shared a few things, and I kind of highlighted 3 different areas, which won't be a surprise for anybody that's been listening to me speak in any time. But I think one of the things that's happened to me as I've evolved over the years is that I've moved from my head to my heart, and more recently to even a more embodied spirituality, including my body. And meaning I believe, I believe that there's more than just our thoughts in how we create. That it's just not my thoughts that create my reality, and so in doing that, it does address this idea of spiritual bypass and some of our shadow work and our emotions and trauma. And so that's been a really evolutionary edge for me, I think, in my spiritual growth. And then I've become much more aware of my collective responsibility in the world, in contrast to this rugged individualism that is taught quite widely within our teachings. That we are 100% responsible for our reality, and if we just focus on our thoughts, and that all is well. That there's not other things that affect us. Our environment, our genetics, our social order, our privilege, our class structure, our physical body. All those things are part of how we create. And yes, our thoughts are very, very powerful. And yes, we do have personal responsibility, but we also have a collective responsibility of how we show up together, how we act in this world together for the highest and best good for all. And I think in many ways I've been humbled by my own continued awareness of my white privilege and unconscious white supremacy and bias that have played into my spirituality and how I've manifested in the world. I'm much more aware of the privilege that I've had in my life, and how our spiritual teachings affect others who haven't been so privileged. And so all these are just, huge subjects, right, that deserve many, many talks, many, many conversations. And hopefully we'll have this chance to flesh this out more as we go through our time together with throughout the year. But today I want to talk really about that first item, that our thinking is 100% responsible for our reality, and kind of touch a little bit on spiritual bypass and the shadow to some extent. And so I want to do this because I think with everything going on in the world and our country, and I'm in the USA, and so that's kind of a big hot spot right now. And in light of the events of this last week with the insurrection and the riot on our country's US Capitol, an attempt to overthrow a free and fair election, it may be of use to all of us. We might imagine that we're feeling a lot of stuff. And I also imagine that across our country and our world, there will be lots of calls for peace and for forgiveness and for love and for compassion and words of hope and the all is well type of ideas, which of course are all good things, which of course are very, very important to us. We have to, know that at our deepest being. But I would caution that we go there too soon. Yes, we can pray for peace and know healing and divine order, but we just really can't ignore the trauma that our systems are going through. And this is what happens when we move into spiritual bypass. We kind of ignore it. And so that term spiritual bypass comes from the book. Well, it actually comes from John Wellwood, but Robert Masters wrote a book about it called Spiritual Bypassing, in which he says spiritual bypass or spiritual bypassing is a tendency to use spiritual ideas and practices to sidestep or avoid facing unresolved emotional issues, psychological wounds, and unfinished developmental tasks. So again, that term kind of started around the early 1980s by John Wellwood, who was a Buddhist teacher and a psychotherapist. And although it wasn't called spiritual bypass back when Ernest Holmes was speaking, I believe he was quite aware of the potential dangers of denying physical realities. And I believe he would include emotional realities in our teaching. In fact, in the Living the Science of Mind on page 152, if you're someone who likes to look those things up, in the chapter titled "Let Us Not Fool Ourselves." "Let Us Not Fool Ourselves" is the title of that essay. Dr. Holmes says, in the science of mind, we do not say everything is all right when it is all wrong. We do not say peace when there is no peace, but whether we try to discover what is wrong and why we do not have peace. We do not say that people are not poor or sick or unhappy. We ask why these things should be if the original cause of all things is harmonious, perfect, radiant, and happy. He doesn't stop there. He goes on and he says, in practicing of spiritual mind healing, we do not deny that people are ill, nor do we minimize the need for sanitation or medical or surgical help. This is very relevant today, I think, in all the conversations we've had about the spiritual autonomy that we have, where we don't support and understand that we still have need for sanitation and masks and social distancing and things that we should cooperate. He says, we seek to aid these other agencies by uniting with them in their efforts, by being grateful for their help, and by cooperating in every way possible with what they are doing. Now, what a powerful message that is for us, to know that we're grateful for the help, that we work in cooperation, that we're not a closed system. This teaching is not a closed system. And I can reach out for help beyond my own experience, my own expertise as a minister. I can reach out and gather information and help and support, as we all can. So, a ministerial school did not equip me for a pandemic. Actually, it didn't equip me for how to be trauma informed. It didn't equip me to understand how our teaching can be used to bury our feelings, or how white privilege is evident in our teachings. I think they're doing a better job of it today, but I went to school a long time ago. So I have to continue to learn and to study as called forth by our founder and by our pillar, our spiritual practice of study, right? So now I have always said that we should honor our feelings, and that we look at our shadow and that we love it. And I've always taught that we love our inner child, those wounded places. But recently, I've really expanded my understanding and practice working with my tendencies for spiritual bypass through a process called Internal Family Systems by Robert Schwartz. I've talked to some of you about it in the past, but basically what Richard Schwartz says is that there are lots of parts within each of us, and that we function much like a family system with these parts. And each part has a function or a duty. And by the way, there are endless amounts of parts in this model. There's lots and lots of parts. And I think at some levels we know this, right? Have you ever just said, a part of me really wants to eat that piece of cake, but another part knows that's probably not a good idea and I want to stay healthy. Or, I'm really mad. I know parents have all these parts, right? I'm really mad at my kid right now. But a part of me really understands what they did. Or we know that we have lots of different parts. And if you ever try to make a decision in your life and there's like a part that I should do this, a part I shouldn't do this, we know all that. And so what this does is just kind of bring in a structure around it to understand it a little better. So I'm going to share with you just some really basic ideas, just to maybe help you begin to use these ideas. And so there's actually 3 types of parts. So there's going to be lots and lots of parts, but there are actually 3 types of part in the IFS model, which is what I'll call it. That's Internal Family Systems, the IFS model. And so this is from their website and from his teachings. One part are manager parts. Managers are responsible for maintaining a functioning level of consciousness in daily life by warding off any unwanted or counterproductive interactions, emotions, or experiencing resulting from external stimuli. These are parts that are really important to us. We might have to, get past our our fear to do something, or just get out of bed in the morning and go to work. And there's these manager parts of us that are always trying to keep us on track and try to keep us, in a healthy way. Surviving, really. These are parts that help us survive. And then there's parts that are called exiles. And these are most often in a state of pain or trauma, which may result from childhood experiences. We have exiled parts that experience trauma as children. So managers, and another part what I'm going to tell about in a minute called firefighters, they exile these parts and prevent them from reaching the conscious level so that proper functioning and preservations are maintained. So then this is kind of, we've talked about the shadow, right? These are the parts that get thrown into the shadow because we need to suppress them in order to function in society. Or as a child, we didn't have the resources to protect ourselves or get out of situations that might have been traumatic. So these parts get exiled, and the managers, along with firefighters, which these are our protector parts, the managers and the firefighters serve as a distraction to the mind when exiles break free from suppression. So in order to protect the consciousness from feeling the pain of the exiles, firefighters prompt a person to act on impulse and engage in behaviors that are indulgent, addictive, oftentimes abusive. So firefighters may redirect attention to other areas such as work, food, alcohol, drugs. So these parts are trying to, they're trying to protect us, trying to keep us safe, but oftentimes result in behavior that's not good for us. So we have those three parts. The managers and the firefighters play the role of protector, while exiles are parts that are being protected. So the thing about these parts is that they're really truly wise and intelligent. Even our exiled parts, they were working to keep us safe and functional. They've been very useful and important when you were a child and trying to survive the traumas that we might have gone through. But those exiled parts, they don't develop. And the protector parts aren't aware that we're not a child anymore. They're not aware that that child within us isn't in danger anymore and thinks that they may be the same age when the trauma happened and they still need protecting. So I'm gonna just give you a little bit of example of these parts in a conversation I had with my friend the other day. Bear with me, that's all the scientific stuff I'm gonna give you. That's a lot to take in. So I was talking to a friend the other day, and she was telling me how bad she felt about gaining so much weight during the pandemic. She said she was telling me, she says, I walked by a mirror and I looked and I exclaimed, oh my God, I'm fat. She said, but immediately she said, oh, I shouldn't say that. Instead, I love myself. I just love myself the way I am. And as we talked about it, I said, well, what about that part that says, I am fat? Maybe that's a part that you're shaming for having this experience. And that part, that manager part said, oh, gotta say, no, we can't look at that part. I just have to go straight to, I'm loved just as I am. And so you see all three parts there, right? The manager part that's saying, no, we have to, we can't look at that part, the exiled part. And then the firefighter part, which was the distracting the part by eating so much during a pandemic, right? So we have all three of those parts in there. And the interesting thing about this is that an affirmation such as I love myself just as I am can be an act of spiritual bypass because we're saying it from our manager parts. We're saying it from that part that is trying to keep everything in order. And as I talked to my friend about loving that part of her that looked in the mirror and exclaimed, a negative statement about herself, she was reminded of something that happened to her in her childhood when she was young and had gone into an addiction treatment center. And while she was there, she gained a lot of weight. And she realized that part needed to be loved. That part needed to be acknowledged. And as she did that, then she was able to love all those parts, right? So, on Wednesday, as I was watching the riots unfold, I was aware that I had a whole lot of parts expressing. And I just acknowledged them. Yes, I have a part right now that's kind of scared, seeing all this. I have an enraged part that this could be happening in our capital and that it could be let to happen. I have an incredibly sad part seeing the overt racism and the white privilege that was blatantly going on in our capital. And so this is important. As we acknowledge all those parts, it doesn't mean that there isn't a part that really does know that all is well. Richard Schwartz talks about this. He started out as a scientist and pretty much an atheist. And what he said would happen as he talked to people and they acknowledged all these parts and they talked to these parts and listened to these parts, he said that these parts would kind of step aside and every single time there emerged this part that he called self with a capital S. And he said every person he worked with, whether they were spiritual, whether they were atheist, that at some point the other part's been acknowledged and loved, there emerged this higher self. And he says it happened regardless of spiritual or religious beliefs or atheist beliefs. And that when we allow all those manager, exiled, firefighter parts to be acknowledged and seen and heard and loved, it opens us up to this divine self. And this is what we teach, right? That this is what Ernest Holmes talks about when he talks about that there's a place within that can never be damaged, never be hurt, that is always love and all of that. And so I think in our teaching sometimes we're not coming from that place. We're coming from the manager places that are saying all is well, all is good, all is great, as opposed to acknowledging those parts so that the true self can come forward. The true divine self can come forward. On Richard Schwartz's website, on the IFS website, he talks about understanding the self with a capital S. And he says, in IFS therapy, the self represents the seat of consciousness and what each person is at the core. The self demonstrates many positive qualities such as acceptance and confidence and calm and wisdom and compassion and connection. He actually designates the 8 qualities of the self in the 8 C's, he calls them: compassion, connection, curiosity, which we talked about last week, right? Confidence, creativity, clarity, courage, and calm. And so the self comes from those qualities. And unlike visible parts, the self is never seen. It is the witnessing eye in the inner world, this aspect of an individual that does the observing. You've heard me talk about this, right? The moving to that witness place, to expanding our circle. And so the IFS model aims to differentiate the self from the other parts, from the manager, the firefighters, the exiles. And the ultimate goal of this is to unburden or restore extreme and wounded parts and establish a trusted, healthy, harmonious internal system that is coordinated by the self. That's true for us as well, isn't it? To be able to love all of ourselves so that divine self is what is guiding and directing us. That's the divine self that is creating. And once in that state of self, people will know what to say to each of those parts in order to promote this harmony within. And Ernest Holmes speaks of this part often. That place that is never harmed, that is always at peace. And so I may not be able to find that self unless I acknowledge the other parts first and ask them to take a break from their jobs and allow the self with a capital S to take charge. So if I begin to honor, acknowledge all those parts that have been shunned or exiled, they can relax. They can go off and play. They can go, express themselves and allow this divine self to show up. So this is where I think we are in this day and age, is to be able to have a more embodied experience of our teaching, a more emotionally aware place in our teaching. So we're not afraid to acknowledge the emotions, the sadness, the anger. And when we do that, we are able to truly get to that divine self, to that self with a capital S. And I know that this has been so powerful for me in my own work on my unconscious bias, on my white privilege, it's helpful to me to acknowledge those parts that I have parts within me that at some point in my life, all through my life, had been given this idea, have been seen a false idea that Black people are dangerous, or that a white person, I should walk in the world with more privilege. These are parts in me that I don't have to be ashamed of, or scared of, or embarrassed. Um, but I can just acknowledge. And once I acknowledge those parts, I'm able to allow that divine self that knows the truth of oneness and love and wholeness and health within all people. When I acknowledge that, even as I speak here at this very moment, I have a part of me that's like, I'm going to screw this up. I'm going to say something that's wrong or hurtful, or, that I can't even acknowledge this, that there's a part of me that's racist. That's a terrible thing to say out loud. And at the same time, when I can acknowledge that there is that part that has learned that story, that has heard that story my whole life, that has witnessed it, then it allows me to have self-compassion. It allows me to be able to break free from that. And once I see that, then I'm able to see other parts, those parts that do see the beauty and the love and the wisdom and the joy, that want to step up in a way that is a healing and honoring, a place of equity. So all those parts within us, instead of stuffing them or shaming them, I begin to love them and give them space, acknowledge them as this exile part that has been managed or by protector parts. Then that divine self, that self with a capital S, can begin to lead me. So Jacob Lieberman said that what we call shadow is nothing more than an aspect of our nature waiting to be embraced and reclaimed. There's lots of parts within us that are waiting to be embraced and reclaimed, to bring us to our wholeness, to our oneness with our whole divine self. So in your own practice this week, as we go through, especially in the United States over the next couple of weeks and more likely beyond, that we can acknowledge those parts of us that have all these emotions that are going on. And as we do that, we can love them, we can acknowledge them. And we might recognize your manager parts that are trying to make it okay, or your firefighter parts that's trying to numb it out, or your exiled parts that have been fearful and sad. And as you do this, those parts might be willing to allow the divine self within you to care for all of you, for all of yourself, with that compassion and that connection and curiosity and creativity and courage and all those. And as always, it can be so helpful to have someone who loves you, to acknowledge and love those parts, just like I did my friend when she said that to me, and she about herself, to be able to say, wow, I really love that part. I really acknowledge that part is in pain, and it's okay, to have that part. And we can say that with each other and not spiritually bypass with each other, but to really stand in the truth for who we are, as I did, as we do every day, to be able to acknowledge that there's a lot of human emotion going on right now. And if there's not human emotion going on right now, then we might really be have some really good managers that are trying to stuff that down. So I would just say we can't be afraid of those parts, and we can't be afraid to acknowledge them, that we are powerful creators from our whole being, not just from our thought. We can't be afraid of what's going on within us and think that somehow is creating detriment in our life. We don't have to push that down and try to be managers or firefighters. We can acknowledge those parts and love them and know that it's from that divine self where we create, not from our manager parts or our firefighter parts. It's from the divine self. And we can know this together as we move through whatever trying times we have ahead, and continue to bring more of us into that place of the divine self. So let's take that into prayer as you think about it. And let's just close our eyes and just feel into, in this very moment, what might be moving within you, where you might feel truth or feel questioning, whatever it is. Just honor all those parts that have lots of experience and expressions, and ask them to just step aside for a moment acknowledge them. Yes, there might be fear, there might be confusion or anger or whatever, and just say, yep, I see you. I acknowledge you. And just for a minute, can you go out and play for a moment while I call forth that divine self? And that's what we do in prayer. We call forth that divine self. And so I acknowledge that that presence and power that moves through all things moves through me, that I do have this divine self. And it is that self in this moment that I speak from, that I honor and love all the parts of me, all the human parts of me that have all kinds of things going on. And I love them and I acknowledge them. And I speak from the divine truth of wholeness and health and love and peace and wisdom, that I allow that truth to come forward through me as I speak my word for myself in the next week or 2 weeks or beyond, that I am safe and healthy and loved, and that there's peace within me and there's calm within me. And I know that as I speak this for myself, I speak it for all of those, especially those in the United States that are going through the next 12, 13 days of knowing peace for our democracy, knowing peace and justice in our world, letting that divine self claim that truth, know that it is so. And at this very moment, if there's a word you would like to speak within your own heart, a word of clarity, of confidence, of calm, let's just do that in a moment of silence. And so it is from this chamber of truth, this energetic knowing of the divine truth of who we are, that I am so grateful to speak this word, to allow it to be, to know that it is already done. And so I release this word into the law that is making it so in this very moment. And we just await with knowing anticipation of the divine truth within us showing up in our lives and the lives of all our beloved in our country and in our world. And so it is. So let us hear from Leah again.
If we can learn what it means to really love ourselves, then we can learn to love our neighbors as we love ourselves. And we can live in harmony, see ourselves as a family. This is my prayer for humanity. That we respect our women and protect our girls, that they feel safe in every corner of the world, that we can live in harmony, see ourselves as a family. This is my prayer for humanity. That every man will be a father to someone, by loving every boy as if it were his only son. That we could live in harmony, see ourselves as a family. This is my prayer for humanity. That we know that nobody really wins a war, and every leader knows what power is for. That we can live in harmony, see ourselves as a family. This is my prayer for humanity. That every man, woman, boy, and girl would feel these words all across the world. That every man, woman, boy, and girl will feel these words all across the world. That every man, woman, boy, and girl will feel these words all across the world. This is my prayer for humanity.
Thank you, Leah, for your beautiful songs and beautiful vision. As we go about our week, we do have our weekly offerings. Charlene, our practitioner, minister in training, is continuing with her dream study, and I am offering our meditation on Thursday mornings, 9 to 9:30 Eastern time, for unified mindfulness teaching as well. We've also started a book study, and we had said that when we got a new book, we would announce it. And I don't know if we did that or not, but if anybody is interested in our book study on Thursday nights, what's the name of the book? I'm sorry, Shaman. Someone share the name of the book out loud.
The Wisdom of the Shaman.
The Wisdom of the Shaman. Thank you, Kristen. So we started last week, but you can contact us, and we can get you on if you'd like to join us for that book study. And that's it for our week this week. Let us continue to know peace and justice for our country and for the world. And let's just place our hand over our hearts and say out loud, I am love. And you can open your eyes, and if you see somebody in front of you, say you are love, or it could be out in the world, you're love. And then let's just place our hands up and just know that it is all love. Send some love sprinkles to our world, to each other, and know that you are blessed. And if you want to join us for some conversation in our pearls, please just click on the Zoom link on our website at cslleesburg.org and join us for conversation for a little bit right now. Blessings to all.